With the Mage Seeker being less than a week from release, things are getting very interesting. Especially since, unlike the Ruined King, the Mage Seeker's release is getting heavily advertised. People got to play the game at LCS. There were also playable demos at PAX. And people got these amazing posters which... I wish I got one. Anyway, all of this advertising is doing wonders. And if you compare it to Ruined King, which was released immediately as a surprise, I still believe that kind of release hurt the game a little bit. Well, here, that's not the case, and people are slowly getting excited for the game. And so, of course, since every week we get new episodes of the Katarina comic, which serves as a prequel to the game, as well as lore expansion for Garen, Katarina, Talon, and everyone around them, well, with the new episodes 7 and 8, things get interesting yet again. And so far, as I mentioned last time, this comic is proving to be the best League comic yet. Speaking of which, before watching this video, you should probably watch the other two videos on this comic. But with all of these things out of the way, let's have a look at the newest episodes of the Katarina comic. The very first image we get is the title art. This time you can find a lot of symbolism in it. But most importantly, it reminds us that the last episode ended with Katarina being shot down from the raptor. And then it cuts into a scene where Katarina's father and Talon are fighting Zed. That's right, I was as confused as you are now. They seem to be in an Ionian temple, not too different from the one in the Rakan and Zaya cinematic. And slowly they are being overwhelmed. Marcus mentions that he never dreamt he would die in Ionia. And Talon mentions he dreamt about dying everywhere. But then the day gets saved when Katarina crashes in through the ceiling, which seems to be a callback to the moment her father dropped onto her in the tea house. She then fights Zed himself, and together, the three kill him. After he dies, Katarina's father talks about how proud he is of her, while Talon looks up and points out Swain's demonic ravens. And Katarina realized something was wrong. Because for some reason, her father never told her he was proud of her. The most he could do was calling her worthless. So after that, the two start turning into demonic ravens. And they start tearing Katarina apart. After that, she wakes up and it was revealed it was just a dream. Although it seems like the dream was forced onto her, because when Katarina wakes up, you can see the real ravens around her. There is also a couple of interesting things we can mention here. First of all, it kinda makes sense why the dream would be in Ionia. During the Noxian invasion of Ionia, one of Zed's main goals was to repel the invasion. But we still don't know if House Dookudo has any special connections with Zed specifically. Maybe they got a bit of a history of their own during the invasion. Also, just like the first time Katarina talked to her father, we can see Swain's demonic ravens inside the dream. The first time this happened was on the ship. But what's odd is that Talon points out the demons. Now, if all of this was a nightmare caused by Swain that would turn Katarina against her own family, why would Swain point out his own demons inside the dream? Well, it would still fit in with the theory that LeBlanc is behind all of this. She could be stalking Katarina and giving her all of these demonic visions. So she would make Katarina think that Swain was corrupted, and perhaps, maybe she would even make Katarina assassinate Swain. This is just a theory, but slowly the pieces are falling together. Maybe all the ravens are constantly around her because Swain is keeping an eye on her in case LeBlanc actually breaks her. Also, in case you missed it, there is a really cool detail. In this dream, Katarina doesn't have the scar across her eye. And at the end of the scene, Talon claws across her eye to give her that scar. Just like he did to her when he was trying to assassinate her. Anyway, Katarina then wakes up, still wounded from the raptor raking across her stomach. And she looks at her broken dagger, which held strong for 7 generations. It almost seems to be symbolic, as Katarina is breaking a family cycle. Anyway, then she realizes that she didn't break any bones from the fall. After which, she immediately starts sinking into the ground. And that's where we got to see all the prismatic goop, which people had some comments about on the internet. And then it is revealed that it all belongs to a massive prismatic slug. What's interesting is that since Katarina was trying to escape the capital city, this Prismatic Slug has to be very close to the great city of Demacia. Not only that, it also seems to be a magical creature, and Katarina herself points out how odd this is. She didn't expect a magical creature in a magical forest inside the Demacian territory. And then she mentions that this is a puzzle for another time for someone who cares. By which she is referencing me and everyone else who is going to play the Mage Seeker. Since this comic is a prequel to the game, there is no way we won't see this slug and this forest in the game, right? Why else would the slug be here for like 2 panels? After that, Katarina then looks up and sees the ravens. And she realizes those are Noxian birds. So let's ignore the 6 eyes, alright? After this, the comic cuts to 2 weeks later, to the moment Katarina arrives back to the safety of the tea house. But we can also see Captain Jaredon, the one who previously tried to assassinate her, stalking her. Inside the tea house, we have a scene where Katarina is trying to explain what happened to her friend, Dran, who is also the owner of the house. But super quickly, if you look into the background, you may notice that this house has some interesting, almost Targonian decorations, such as what seems to be the ibex crystals and a statue resembling the Lunari faith. I don't think there is any deeper meaning in this, I think it's just decorations claimed by the Noxians. Unless it's Blood Moon for a reason coming up later. Anyway, Katarina explains what happened and Dran hugged her. After which Katarina confirms that she is not a hugging person. They then start talking about Jaredon, the assassin that's after her. And they figured out that he is likely a Noxian, or at least, his master is. While Katarina knows that he is after her, he probably doesn't know her exact location, because the tea house has a secret entrance. And if you are not paying attention, you may miss the fact that the hidden entrance is this vault door underneath the carpet. And this is when Katarina's wound catches up with her, and Dran decides to help. As it turns out, Dran is a hemomancer, who apparently doesn't like using her powers that much, but for Katarina, she would do it. After sucking out the wound and trapping the blood inside her glass, the wound healed. What's interesting is that you can see she kept the blood inside the glass. This could be for multiple reasons. Either she is using the blood for something that is coming up later and this is most definitely what's happening, or it could be because sometimes hemomancy can result in addiction to blood. That's why you can often see hemomancers carrying vials of blood with them. Either they are using it as a weapon or they use it to sate their hunger. And in an extreme case, there is a hemomancer who is trading entire orphans to Vladimir for vials of his blood. But in this comic, I'm pretty sure it's not about addiction. I just wanted to mention this because it's pretty cool lore. Anyway, as Katarina talks about how confused she is about Swain's and her father's motivations, Dran opens up a secret cabinet full of weapons to let Katarina choose a new weapon instead of her daggers. And here we can see a lot of references to items from League. Infinity Edge, Duskblade of Darkthar, Lord Dominic's Regards, 2 blades with the seal of the Triforix on them, maybe a refillable potion, and the Elixir of Wrath. After checking out the weapons, Dran points out that if Katarina offered her more blood, there is something more she could do for her. Katarina declines, but the comic still shows us the 2 blades with the Noxian Triforix on them. This is most likely foreshadowing what's going to happen at the end of the comic. After this, episode 7 ends when Katarina picks up her broken dagger, saying that she has to meet with Talon before doing anything else, because she has a suspicion that Talon was against her the entire time, and if he was, she was ready to repay an old debt. Episode 8 then cuts into the manor of House Dookudo, where for the first time we can see Katarina's mother, who tried to turn Cassiopeia into a noblewoman. After sneaking in through the window, she was immediately met by Talon, in his pajamas. Well, one of us has to change. At first, everything rolled out slowly. From Dran, Katarina learned that her father never appeared anywhere in Noxus. So he was either pulled back from Demacia and killed, or he is somewhere in the hiding. So she asked Talon about this, and he replied that the last time he saw their father was the same day she did, before he traveled out and died. But thankfully, Katarina could smell Shreeman jasmine and Noxian honeyfruit, which, as we learned from the previous episode, was the perfume of her father. So she knew something was off. It seemed like Talon was working with her father, so she asked him for how long. And that's when it was revealed that Talon was always working with him. And he even helped her father fake his death. He did it all so that together they could kill the tyrant Swain. And now that he disarmed Katarina, he could do it with the daggers of House Dookudo. And he could replace her as the rightful heir to the Dookudo family. Which is when she pulled out the broken dagger and cut Talon's eye. It wasn't really a revenge for what Talon did to her. She never wanted to do this, but she was ready for it anyway. The reason is that the scar Talon gave her broke her trust in her father. It made her think clearly about her family. It seems like she wanted to help Talon break from the shackles of her father too. And so she is trying to give him the same treatment. That's why she mentioned that both of them were just blades in her father's collection. And that's why at the end she said that instead of dying, Talon deserved to know this too. But he didn't see it yet. He was still convinced that together with their father, they would kill Swain with his demonic powers. And so Katarina promised that if his mind didn't clear up, she would come back. This entire moment is really cool because it fits all of their stories. But now I wonder if she gave Talon the same scar except across his other eye. Is Riot going to update Talon's model? Will he have the scar across his face now? I mean, Riot promised more ASUs. This has to be one of them, right? Anyway, episode 8 then ends when Katarina returns to the tea house, which apparently is being swarmed by Swain's ravens now. She returns to Dran, explaining that her brother now wants her dead too. And finally, she gets some sleep on her couch. The following morning, as Katarina is getting ready for the final showdown with her own family and the assassin that's after her, Dran starts preparing surgical tools, as they prepared the two Triforix blades on the table. And in the final scene, Katarina tells her to take as much blood as she needed. And this is most likely why Dran kept the blood in the glass from before. This comic is heavily implying that she is using the blood for rune weaving, and she is going to bind the new blades to Katarina. What I love about this is that this might be the moment Katarina gets her magical abilities. Technically, at this point, it was confirmed that Katarina is not a mage. And canonically, she can't just throw out a dagger and teleport to it. But after this scene, it seems extremely likely that she is going to get those abilities. And remember, we have 2 more episodes to go before the Mage Seeker releases. So next week, we are going to learn what's going on. But for now, that is it for the comic. I have to say, after reading this, unfortunately, I'm not sure if we are actually going to see Katarina in the Mage Seeker game. It seems like now her story kinda moved away from Demacia. But she still gave us some interesting setups, including maybe Jaredon and definitely the Slug. We're seeing the Slug in the game, right? And yes, overall, this is still shaping up to be the best League comic we ever got. And even in the background, they are still hiding some really cool Easter eggs. Including the fact that now we even know what a typical Noxian breakfast looks like. Guys, I am not making a Riot MMO video about consumables.